Welcome back to New Day Northwest. A new graphic novel is taking a look at life in Seattle during the World War II era. We Are Not Strangers is author Josh Tuininga's debut graphic novel, and it takes a surprise look at the relationship, a surprising relationship, between a Jewish family and a Japanese family. And Josh joins me now. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It seems very intersectional. What inspired you to tell this specific story, and why at the time was a close relationship between a Japanese family and a Jewish family so surprising?
Yeah, so this story started with a story that my uncle told me about attending his grandfather's funeral. And it was a typical Jewish event until a handful of Japanese American guests started to arrive. And nobody knew who they were or why they came, but what my uncle found out is that his grandfather had helped these families when they were forced out of the neighborhood and incarcerated during the war. So his story only took a couple minutes to tell, but I just couldn't stop thinking about it. You know, how does a Jewish immigrant with family overseas still threatened by the Holocaust end up helping his Japanese American neighbor at home? So
it's beautiful. What a beautiful story.
Yeah, and it's about the environment that kind of creates that remarkable relationship. So.
Speaking of beauty, your artistic style is absolutely beautiful. Tell us, we've got some of the images from the book we're going to show right now as well. Let's talk about your artistic style.
Oh, okay. Well, it's been developing my whole life. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I've been drawing since I was a little kid, and yeah, I think a lot of this style and these images kind of come from a lot of the research I did. You know, looking at old pictures from the past and talking to historians and stuff like that, and getting you know, research inspiration. So.
I think you know, it's a traditional comic book style. We've seen graphic novels, but I think it's the eyes. It's how you draw the eyes that you can see really a lot of the emotion in them, which I think is really beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
So help us understand what the Seattle areas you write about were like during the wartime period. I know you mentioned a little bit about your grandfather's friend's story, but tell us kind of what else we might experience here.
Well, this project is set in the Central District, and that was a place, well, it was where my family, Jewish immigrants from the Mediterranean, settled when they came to America. And it was a place that immigrants and minorities who were blocked from living elsewhere would kind of call their home. So it was like a place where all these different cultures were jammed up against each other and could get to know each other as neighbors and friends. So I think that's where a lot of the stories that are similar to my grandfather or my uncle's story happened, because there was all these cultures living together. So that's kind of what I highlighted. All these different stories together and oral histories to create this
beautiful tapestry.
Historical fiction, yeah.
That's really, really neat. So what kind of research did you do for the book? I mean, you heard the stories, but did you actually have to kind of find out like specific places and things? Yeah,
I mean, when I heard the story, I was starting from scratch. I hadn't learned much of this when I was a kid. You know, I mean, So yeah, I had to get a lot of help. Started with historians at University of Washington to help out, and then denshow.org is a incarceration archive based in Seattle. They were a big resource, but honestly, just face-to-face interviews with people. I got to meet people whose families were helped, at the time, and yeah, people were helped by, renting out their homes. That's the story of my uncle's story. His grandfather rented out their family's homes.
Got it. Okay.
And so they had a place to come home to when they got back, which was really, really rare. And then people, helped by storing possessions for people or keeping businesses afloat, stuff like that. So all these stories I would learn about, and then, sometimes I'd just be able to interject a little something in a panel. And then sometimes it'd be like, oh, this is going to be a whole new chapter or whatever. So it just grew from there.
I think that's so beautiful, because you're right. We don't actually learn the stories of our own area at these times. We've learned a little bit, but I think it's amazing. So on top of talking to the professors and talking to historians and using the resources available to you, what was your process for creating this graphic novel?
Well, my process was evolving over time, I'd say. I think it's it's probably just research, writing, storyboarding, drawing, and then rinse and repeat. Just kind of.
You say it so it's so casual. I mean, I wish I could do that. I mean, that's really amazing.
Well, thanks. I mean, yeah, I've just been doing it forever, so it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, the writing and research was new for me. That was the biggest challenge for me. So.
Before I let you go, what do you hope people learn from this story?
For me, the biggest takeaway is that I think nowadays we're kind of almost like encouraged to look at each other as strangers in a lot of ways. We're so divided and stuff.
Yeah.
So I hope this story is a reminder that it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You know, so I live in kind of a rural area where not everybody in my community sees eye to eye in everything, but I find that if I reach out, listen, help out, I can always find common ground on something, and I think that's like super
Absolutely.
powerful. So
I could not agree with you more. Thank you so much for sharing this with us and for sharing this with everyone. And of course, please go check out the book, We Are Not Strangers, based on a true story.